Let's finish up the first hour. We'll get back to some more messages. I know a couple of you have already sent in some. Well, actually, I'll just go through them right now. Ben has sent over his unknown, or not unknown player, but player that's maybe flying under the radar for the Brewers as we get set for this upcoming season and spring training and such. Ben says it's in his opinion, it's Garrett Mitchell. I think Garrett Mitchell is a guy that's going to really take off this year. Has been hampered by some injuries in the last couple of years, but I think he stays healthy this year and shows that he can be a very good center fielder, both defensively and offensively for the Brewers. And then one more texter, Eric, says it's Tobias Myers. I know Tobias Myers was mentioned a while ago, but I think he is a guy that nobody is talking about this year. And the way he finished the season last year is definitely a guy that is flying under the radar for the Crew this year. Good picks. Yeah, I mean, good picks. No argument from me over there. No doubt about it. We'll get back to some more Brewers talk and such coming up next hour. We'll do a little game time, play a little match game when it comes to the green and gold and such. Again, I threw out the names, but if you're just joining us, so we're going to do a little match game, just to have a little fun here. You know, we're in the off season and such when it comes to football and that. But, you know, next month is going to be free agency and all that fun stuff, and maybe even some trades and that. But, you know, of the names of these receivers that have been either rumored to be available or have demanded some trades, got 6 names here. And between these 6, only these 6, and throw away money, throw away what the contract is, throw away what it might cost to get them in a trade. Okay, this is just for fun. This is just for fun. Which of these receivers, you got to pick one, do you think is the best match for the Packers? Deebo Samuel, who over the weekend apparently requested a trade from the 49ers. Devontae, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson's name's been thrown out there as a potential trade target from the Jets. Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf. Of those 6, those are names that have been floated out as maybe some possibilities, as a little bit of a matchmaker for the Packers, or maybe possibilities as on the trade market and such. Just those 6 you can choose from. Got to pick one. Again, don't factor in contract or how much it would be to acquire them. This is just for fun. I want to see if we got a majority going on here for match game. Okay. So we'll get to that coming up next hour. And depending on how quick that goes, I may throw in match game for edge rushers. Actually, I will. We'll do match game for edge rushers here too. And I'm going to give you a few names. Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, or Micah Parsons. Same rules. Same rules apply for the receivers. Before that, we'll talk some Bucks as we finish up the first hour this morning. Bucks last night falling to the Golden State Warriors. Again, no Giannis in the game. No Giannis until after the All-Star break. Bucks tried, but ultimately fell 125 to 111. Dame leading the way with 38 points. Kyle Kuzma in his third game here with the Bucks, putting up putting up 21 points and 6 rebounds. And that was pretty much it, outside of Prince also putting up 19 points. He was 5 of 7 from 3. He had nobody else from the Bucks in double figure scoring. Bucks getting out rebounded by 11. Bucks 20 turnovers, a lot of sloppy play in the Bucks game last night. So Bucks falling to 28 and 24 on the season. And before the game last night, Jon Horst talking to the media, first time since the trade deadline, and he noted with the Chris Middleton trade that it was, quote, the hardest transaction that he has made as an executive, but he did so to maximize the window for a championship. Quote, it's still the awesome responsibility to try to take this franchise and maximize the window that we have now as best as we can. What we think gives us the best chance to win and figure out how to continue winning going forward. There's a very narrow set of opportunities that we felt that we could do that, and this was one of them. He also went on to say, Horst said Middleton's availability did not have much of an impact on his decision to make the move, saying collectively, quote, collectively, I think we're deeper in the spots we need to be deeper. This gave us an opportunity to diversify a little bit, to kind of put money and talent and roster spots in other places where I thought we needed help. He also went on to say this isn't a Chris for a Kyle comparison, although that's the easy thing to do. It's the team before the trade deadline and the team after the trade deadline, and to be determined with an open roster spot that we felt like in totality, we positioned ourselves to have a better run this year. That doesn't do anything to diminish the three-time All-Star, Olympian, NBA champion, pillar in the community, everything that Chris Middleton was for this franchise over a decade. And I think, part of this trade though too, and I'm one of those that really gets confused at times when it comes to like the first apron, second apron, when it comes to NBA salaries and luxury tax and all that. But I think this is a note to make with all the moves that the Bucks made, is that a part of that move is that the Bucks got below the second apron of the collective bargaining agreement, which gives Milwaukee more flexibility to improve their roster. And Jon Horst did say that was a perk, but not the driving force, saying, quote, we believe that this gives us a better chance to win this year. It also, it happens to also put us under the second apron, which gives us some benefits going forward. There's no question, and we'll hopefully maximize those benefits, but that wasn't the intent, which honestly, I kind of call a little bull on. I think that was probably a little bit part of the intent. I mean, it factors into it, right? When you make moves like that, it's got to factor stuff into that. About Kyle Kuzma, Horst said, Kyle's a great ball mover. His assist numbers and box score stats may not always show his impact, but he just passes to move the ball. He's up there with Giannis in terms of effectiveness and efficiency and frequency and transition. There's a big gap between Giannis and the rest of our team and that statistic. We're at our best playing fast, so another player that can get out and go with the ball. He still is a scorer, shooter, I think has upside at 29 years old. I think we strongly believe that he's in his prime. We can see better basketball from Kyle Kuzma than we have the last couple of years. We believe that in our system playing with these guys. So, again, those were comments from Bucks general manager Jon Horst about the trade deadline, some of the moves that were being made out there, and or moves being made by the Bucks and that. And, buyout market's going to be the next thing, right? Buyout market's going to be the next thing. Can they add another player out there? And the thing is like you look at recent history and such when it comes to the Bucks. I mean, I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into the buyout market. I'm not. I don't know how much of an impact that player is going to be. Maybe they can go out and find somebody out there, but I'm not putting a whole lot out there, a whole lot of in terms of a lot of expectations, unless there's a surprise player out there and they're able to bring them aboard and that. But I'm looking at a guy that maybe could come in with some depth and maybe provide some minutes off the bench. That might be the thing. But we'll see. We'll wait and see how that kind of transpires moving forward. So, Bucks will be back at it tomorrow. They're going to be traveling not too far from us, just across the border, taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that game is going to be tomorrow night, and then the Bucks are going to be off. Bucks are going to be off for a while until the 20th because of the All-Star break. So, again, don't expect Giannis to play in the All-Star game. Maybe he does something like he did a couple years ago where he had the wrist injury and he gets the start and then plays a minute, then goes out and such. I don't know. That wouldn't surprise me either because, he was the lead vote getter and such, so he's still going to be there. But in terms of playing a lot, no. And Doc Rivers mentioned that the other day. He's like, that wouldn't look good on us if, he's not playing now and then he goes and plays in the All-Star game. They've got the bigger picture in mind here. We need Giannis when it comes to the postseason this year. We get to the postseason again, and there's no Giannis, or he's really banged up, and Dame's banged up. You might as well just call it. This team isn't going anywhere without Giannis and Day. Just not. They don't have enough firepower behind those two guys. And, kind of looking at, I know we got one more game before the All-Star break here, but I mean, right afterwards, you've got, the Clippers, okay, Wizards. You're going to be visiting the Wizards. So here you go. Visiting Middleton. Then then you got a tough stretch here with the Rockets, the Nuggets. We'll see what the Mavs are like if Anthony Davis is going to be back by then. You got the Mavs again after that between, the Hawks are sandwiched in between there too. So, I think we're all fairly confident the Bucks are going to make the postseason. It's just, I think it's going to be big for them to try to get a 4 seed. They're 1.5 back now from Indiana for that 4 seed, at least a 4 seed, because you want that home court. And right now, you look at the last 10 games for the Bucks, 3-7, not playing good hoops. And the discrepancy between home and away, they're 17-9 at home, even though they lost last night to the Warriors, but they're under 500 on the road, just 10-15. Of the top 5 teams, they have the worst road record. Now, I know averages, teams are probably going to have a worse road record than they are at home. But, Cavs, 25-4 at home, 18-6 on the road. Celtics actually have a better record on the road, 22-6. They're 16-10 in Boston. The Knicks, 16-8 on the road. Pacers are 500 on the road. Bucks, 10-15. That's why I think it's important for them to at least try to get to that 4. Try to get to that 4. Because you're probably, Pistons are now just 1.5 back from the Bucks. But right now, if we were to lay some future bets, it's probably going to be a Pacers-Bucks opening round series, which honestly would probably make some Bucks fans a little bit more nervous. You got a little bit of a rivalry between these two. The difference, though, might just be, okay, they're going to be home. Are they going to be away? And then if it all kind of plays out that way, the second round might be Cavs, which would be a very, very tough matchup. But we got lots of basketball to play before we get to that. So, all right, a couple more texts when it comes to Brewers. Some players that are maybe flying under the radar for the Brewers here a little bit. We've got a pick. This is from Greg. Greg is saying Tobias Myers as well. We got another pick here for Hudson. This texter don't have a name, says Hudson, I think, is going to be a dynamite back-end bullpen pitcher for the Brewers this year. Trevor McGill's another pick. Speaking of bullpen pitchers, that's from Matt. Matt says Trevor McGill is going to be the next solid closer for the Brewers in line. He had some nasty stuff last year, and now with no Devin Williams, we'll see him more in closing situations this year, and I think he is going to surprise a lot of people. That's a solid pick, too. Good picks. I don't think there's a right or wrong one in this whole thing. I just think, when it comes to Mizorowski, that might be a hidden weapon, a hidden gem for the Brewers this year. Probably won't see him right away. Right? We probably won't see him right away. Maybe not. Unless he just goes out in spring training and absolutely dominates. But I think we're going to see him at some point. And when we do, I think it's going to be awesome. He's got some electric stuff right now. All right, we'll get back to more of your picks coming up in a little bit. Coming up next hour, we got a little game time coming at you. We'll do a little game time here. So, again, if you missed it, we're going to do a little match game coming up for the green and gold. We'll get back some more Brewers talk as well as we inch closer and closer to the start of spring training. We'll finish up the second hour, though, with Morgs. Good morning, Morgan.
Are you done now that the Super Bowl is over? Is football dead to you?
Football's never dead. Come on.
I know, but do you kind of feel yourself shifting into baseball now, or do you kind of always slow roll out? Because you called it. You called it, and it was pretty clear early that the Eagles were going to take it. So I'll give you that win. But as far as shifting seasons, are you a hard, okay, we're done now, moving on? or do you still
It's
like
kind
to
of
keep a
slow
foot in the
rollout.
world?
I think once we get closer to opening day, it'll hit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, next month.
Are you feeling good about the Brewers season?
This
doesn't sound very convincing.
I think they'll compete for a playoff spot.
Okay.
I think they'll compete for a playoff spot.
So you're feeling...
I'm feeling optimistic.
1 to 10.
I'm at about a 6.
Okay.
6.5.
A little bit past halfway on the Brewer scale.
Yeah.
Who do you know that's the biggest football fan in your life besides you?
Biggest football fan?
Because there's a little depression going on with my football friends after the Super Bowl, because not only are you not on for game day on the weekends, there's not a reliable game on. You don't have those weekday games to look forward to, but you also can pretty well see no football in sight. Winter's in. It's kind of like that funky kind of year.
I'd have to think about that. Like the diehard football fan where there's nothing else to do in life.
Yeah. Where now they
about
get
that
super
one.
depressed because it's cold and there's no football.
I have to think about that a little bit.
Well,
Probably
then,
Hudson's friends.
Who's your most excited baseball fan? Like, do you have a big baseball fan?
Brandon, probably.
All year long? So now this is really his time of year, gearing up on spring training and all that kind of thing?
Yep.
What's your magic 8-ball for? I have to ask. Are you solving the life's and world's problems?
Yeah, we do a little game time now. It's our crystal ball segment sometimes we do. So like yesterday we said, where's Aaron Rodgers going to play? So we asked the magic 8-ball.
Okay. I know that they parted ways on the Jets. No surprise there. You take a fancy plane ride across the state and you pretty much know what's coming your way when you walk in the door.
At least he did get broken up by email or text.
It's not me, it's you.
Yeah.
I don't think Aaron would believe that. He would actually say, no, it is you, because everything's about me. You think someone else is going to pick him up? I think the body's dead.
Well, he's got to decide if he wants to play first. But,
but
I think there'll be one. There's 32 teams. There'll be one that'll throw a line out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Take your stab. Then.
I went Steelers.
Why?
They don't really have a quarterback right now. And they always make the playoffs, so might try one more year.
Now, as a fan,
yeah,
would you like to see him succeed in that role? Or
as long as it doesn't affect Green Bay.
So you want to see him, like, have a couple of good games, but not take it all the way.
Yep.
So you want to give him a little bit of success, but not too much.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't affect Green Bay. So
okay.
Hey, really quick.
Yes.
I only got 30 seconds.
Hit me.
So last week you did trivia?
Yes.
I got to brag. So it was the kids' sports trivia thing last night.
Yeah.
Hudson's team.
They took it.
They were in last place entering the last question. And you had to bid how many points that you were going to, is like Final Jeopardy. You had to put a bid.
Oh, did they all in?
So they had 31. They bid 29.
Okay, smart.
And they got the last question
What was the question? We all need to know the question.
Who wore 33 for the Bucks?
Okay.
And it was Kareem. And they had to think about it for a while. But nobody else bid enough points. They went from last to first.
The
youngest team. They beat all the old kids, too.
Shake that 8-ball. Look good. Nice work, guys.
Second hour kicking off right now on this Tuesday morning. A big thanks for tuning in however you're tuning in from. Coming to you from the TDS Sports Talk Studios. Reminder, tomorrow morning, we're actually going to be at the Soninteg Center. Going to be doing the show from the Soninteg Center over by the basketball courts, getting set for the big-time matchup between the Blue Golds and Platteville tomorrow night. So we'll get the video streams up and rolling over there too. But as usual, you can listen on the dials, radio dials, or online, or on the app. All right, coming up in about a little over an hour, we'll do some Badger chat with Mr. RJ Cardinal. Badgers they got some off time right now, Badger basketball that is, as they get set for their big time game this weekend, going up against Purdue. The Badgers jumping up in the rankings as well, moving up 5 spots to number 17 in the latest AP poll. They're up 1 spot over Marquette. Marquette is in action tonight, looking to end their 3-game losing streak. They're going to be taking on DePaul tonight. So we'll talk some Badger hoops with RJ. I know we've got for Badger men's hockey, they've got Ohio State coming up this weekend, then the Notre Dame after that. So we're starting to wrap up their season here in the next couple of weeks. And on the women's side, for women's hockey, continuing to roll for this season. They defeated Minnesota over the weekend. I mean, just kind of taking it to the Gophers too. 8-2 victory last Saturday, or 8-2 victory this past Saturday. 6-1 on Sunday. They got Bemidji State coming up at the end of this week, and then it's the WCHA first round. The last week, or not this weekend. They got Bemidji State the following week, excuse me, and then WCHA first round postseason starts. Man. So we'll talk all things Badger with Mr. Cardinal coming up at about 8:20 this morning. We got a little game time coming up. We're going to play a little match game. Packers edition. So we will we'll hit that up here in just a little bit. I had a texter a little bit earlier ask this. Now that all the head coaching jobs in the NFL have been filled, which one do you think is the best hire? It's a good question. So Kellen Moore's going to get the job for the Saints. I mean, that's a foregone conclusion right now. And that was the final one opening. We know Liam Cohen got the Jaguars, Ben Johnson with the Bears, Mike Vrabel with the Patriots, Pete Carroll with the Raiders, Aaron Glenn with the Jets, Brian Schottenheimer with the Cowboys. I mean, if I were to look, we could do even another game time there. If we could rank them there, I'd put Schottenheimer as the last one. Now, you could surprise and it could just work, and then we'd never hear the end of Jerry Jones tooting his own horn. But that one I would put last. Other than that, I think they were some solid hires. I mean, the Bears hit it with Ben Johnson. That was target numero uno, and they got him. I think you had to go out and get an offensive-minded head coach to pair up with Caleb Williams. You had to, and they got the number one guy out there. The Jets, I thought, hit it with their head coach, Aaron Glenn. You needed to change that culture over there. And you got a tough-minded guy, a guy who played there, was drafted by there, knows that market, knows that franchise. I get it, a little bit different ownership, but he gets it, and I think he's going to bring the right attitude for that. So I liked that hire by the Jets. The Raiders tried to get Ben Johnson. They also need a culture change. Pete Carroll is the definition of changing the culture. I don't know how long he's going to last. I mean, he coaches like a 50-some-year-old, 40-some-year-old out there. But I think you bring him in, and that tells you guys like a Max Crosby, hey, we're not in a rebuild. We're going to try to retool this thing and not make it a long, drawn-out process, because Pete Carroll doesn't want it to be a long, drawn-out process. And I'm really intrigued, bringing Chip Kelly over too as the offensive coordinator. So I thought that was a smart. It was maybe not the flashiest, up-and-coming guy like a Ben Johnson would have been. But if you want to kind of settle, you play in perhaps the toughest division of football, one of the toughest divisions of football in the AFC West. You bring in a guy that has been pretty consistent throughout, his Seattle career, maybe getting the most out of some of the guys that he's had in that roster post the Super Bowl run. So I like that hire too. The Liam Cohen one, I'm not. I think they had to go out and again try to find an offensive-minded head coach to pair up with Trevor Lawrence to really try to maximize what you have with Lawrence. Now, Lawrence has been dealing with a lot of injuries, so you look at what Liam Cohen did this past year with Baker and that offense. Jaguars are probably looking at that like, yeah, we want that. Little inexperienced, so he's a little bit of an unknown at this point. The Vrabel one, I mean, again, you had to change where the franchise was going. You brought in one of your best players of all time. We know Vrabel, tough-minded attitude, tough coach. I think he's going to change things and right that ship as well. So I mean, I like a lot of these hires made sense. They make complete sense. But if I had to pick one, man, I mean, the easy one would be Ben Johnson, right? But I mean, it probably is Ben Johnson, but it's not like, I think you still have question marks. Okay, it's different from going from an offensive coordinator where you're just, game planning the offense side and calling plays and that. Now you're responsible for the whole team and the whole operation. So it's going to be more. Now, I think it was smart to bring in a veteran as your defensive coordinator who has been a two-time head coach to kind of rely on. But I think Ben Johnson's going to get the most out of Caleb Williams, and that's a dangerous thing for the rest of the division. You got Roma Dunze and such, so got to figure out that offensive line. They got to get better over there. But I think that's a good one. If you want to make the case for Vrabel with Patriots or Carroll in that, I probably wouldn't argue either, but I'd slightly probably go with Ben over there. A couple more texts. We were talking some Brewers with in the first hour. Who's the most under the radar type player that maybe isn't getting a ton of attention as we get set for spring training and get going here? Got a couple more picks for Tobias Myers. One was from John saying it's Tobias Myers the way he ended the season. I'm really excited to see what he could do now with a full season being part of the starting rotation for the Brewers. Hopefully it continues to trend upward. Chris also said Tobias Myers. I think when it's all said and done, he's going to be the best starting pitcher on this roster. And then we had a Garrett Mitchell pick. We had a William Contreras pick for a guy who I think, and this is from Matt saying, for a guy who I think is the best catcher in all of baseball. Sure seems like he's still not getting enough talk out there across Major League Baseball, maybe even from some Brewers fans out there. So for that reason, I think he's flying under the radar a little bit. And then we had another pick for Tobias there. Don't have a name for that. And then Jeff went with Sal Frelick. Sal Frelick, dude just won a Gold Glove in right field. Had a big time hit in that last playoff game. Would like to see more from his offense, but maybe year 3 we could see more consistency at the plate. And I also feel like he was fairly solid on the offense side, just doesn't have a lot of power. But for a team that's going to play small ball this year, he may be the guy that exceeds expectations for this season. All right, some solid picks, some good picks. Keep those coming. We'll get back to some more coming up throughout the program. All right, let's take a really quick break, and then we'll play a little game time here. So trying to do a little game time every program. We're going to do little match game coming up just to get our little football talk in here. So of these receivers that have been mentioned as possible trade candidates or free agent signings, we've got 6. You got to pick one out of these 6 that I'm about to give you. Which one? And take away money, take away what it would cost to trade for them. We're not going to go down in those weeds. Just straight up simple. Which of these receivers matches best with Green Bay in terms of maybe the style of offense or, in that receiving group, whatever reasons you want to give. You got to pick one of these 6. Is it Debo? Is it Devontae? Is it T. Higgins? Is it Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, or DK Metcalf? And these are the 6 that have been mentioned as, hey, maybe these teams will trade these guys, or maybe they could be potential free agents, or they are free agents. So you got to pick one. And again, don't get too much in the weeds and talking about contracts and trade, how much it would cost to trade for them. We're not worried about that. And then I'm going to throw in, as a bonus match game, edge rusher, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. Those 3. I threw in Micah Parsons because there was a report the other day that Cowboys potentially thinking about, debating whether they're going to sign him or potentially trade him. So Max, Myles Garrett, or Micah Parsons. Okay, that's the bonus match game. Take a quick break, and we'll be back after these quick words. All right, let's take a little bit of a break from analyzing, scrutinizing, bantering. Let's have a little fun here with some game time here. We know we're in the NFL off season now. Free agency going to begin next month and such. So let's have a little fun. Let's play a little match game when it comes to the Green Bay Packers. So match game. We're going to match game, or we're going to match up, I should say, potential wide receiver. Now, I don't know if Green Bay's going to go out and get a receiver in the free agent market or trademark or anything like that, but we're just doing this for fun. Okay, we're going to have a little fun. That's what game time's all about. And we're going to play a little match game with 6 receivers, and we'll see where the majority of you go with this. You have to match one receiver to the Packers. Okay, of these 6, these are your 6 options. You can't pick another one. These are the 6 we're going to go with because these are the 6 that you've had people, insiders, analysts saying that the team could trade them to maybe move on or acquire, just clear some space or such, or you've had Packer fans kind of mention them as a potential target in that. So here are your 6 contestants. And for this, dude, don't worry about don't worry about contracts. Don't worry about, you know, how much it's gonna cost to trade for them. We're just gonna make this simple. The question I'm asking is, what do you think is the best fit within the current style of this team, current style of this offense, the Packers offense, the best fit for this team, just from pure performance standpoint. Okay, that's all I'm looking for. So your 6 contestants here are Deebo Samuel from the 49ers, who it was revealed on Sunday that he has asked the 49ers for a trade, looking to move on from the San Francisco 49ers. Devontae, I mean, that's been talked about for how long now? T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson has been mentioned as a possible trade candidate for the Jets. Cooper Kupp, we know, is the Rams are trying to find a trade partner for him. And then DK Metcalf, that's also kind of been um hasn't been a big one out there. It's been floated as a possibility. I think part of it is you look at Seahawks, you got Jack Big, but you got Tyler Lockett and such. Maybe looking to move on from DK and acquire some picks or cap space and such. So I mean that's a possibility that it's been thrown out there. So we have included him. Okay, of those 6, text me right now or comment on the video stream who you think is the perfect match. Who do you think is the perfect match? Okay. We're going to go through a little bit of their backgrounds. Again, I don't care about contracts. I don't care about how much it's going to cost to potentially acquire them. But we'll give you a little bit of a background on them, kind of like a little bit of a scouting report, if you will, to maybe help make your decision. So let's start with Deebo. All right. So Deebo Samuel just turned 29 years old. Obviously, been with the 49ers, has had success under Kyle Shanahan's system over the years. Matt LaFleur, a Kyle Shanahan disciple. Deebo, 15 games last year, 81 targets, 51 catches, just 670 yards, but he has been used not as much as he did a couple years ago, but he's also been used as a guy that you can line up as a running back and the backfield and such. But you look at 2021, which was that was his all-pro year. He had over 1,400 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns. He also had 365 yards on the ground, the most, and 8 rushing touchdowns. Since then, though, the numbers have kind of gone down. 2022, he played in 13 games, 632 yards receiving. 2023, 15 games, 892 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. And then I just went over the 2024 yards over there. A versatile guy, right? A versatile receiver, kind of a bigger receiver, not in terms of height, but like bulk, right? 6 foot. He's about 215, 220 over there. But do you think, is he the match? Is he the perfect match for Green Bay? You look at the trend for some of his numbers. Is he just a victim of circumstances too? When you look at the 49ers, and it's like, well, they got George Kittle. Then they got Brandon Ayuk. Then they got Christian McCaffrey. There's only one ball to go around. And maybe that's why Deebo wants out too. Maybe he wants to be more of that go-to guy. So how much do you factor in? Well, dude only had 670 and 3 tuds. Well, was it because, again, you look at Kittle, you look at McCaffrey, you look at Ayuk, a lot of options to go for there. But the familiarity with the system and a guy you can use in different parts, maybe that's intriguing for Green Bay. Maybe that's intriguing for Matt LaFleur. Or maybe you're thinking it's you already got one of those guys like a Jaden Reed. The next receiver on our match game list here, he needs no introduction. We know enough about him, Davante Adams. Okay. Now, Davante, I believe, him and Cooper Kupp are the two oldest guys on this list. I believe Davante might just be a little bit older. Davante's 32. He'll be 33 in December. Cooper Kupp, I believe, is also 32 here too. So, but Cooper will be 32 in June. So Davante is slightly older, a few months older than Cooper Kupp. But you look at Davante, and you look at his career. This year he played 14 games combined with the Raiders and the Jets. He played every single game his first 2 full seasons with the Raiders too. 854 yards receiving total. Wait, no. Actually, combined in 14 games, Davante Adams this year had over 1,000 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. So, he's gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row at over 1,000 yards. 2019, he had 997 yards. Otherwise, we'd be talking about 7 straight seasons with over 1,000 yards. We know he's great at separation, route running. Getting off the line of scrimmage. A lot of the stuff we keep hearing about Dontavian Wicks, we heard about Davante Adams. So maybe Davante Adams, again, familiar with the system, familiar with Green Bay, familiar a little bit with the quarterback, familiar with the play caller and the head coach, but maybe he would be the perfect guy to mentor this younger receiving group that has Jaden Reed, that has Dontavian Wicks, maybe the perfect mentor for Dontavian Wicks. Romeo's over there too. Watson coming back from injury. Maybe he's just that guy. A guy who still has been producing. Even at his age, he has still been producing. But maybe he's just the perfect mentor for in the short term. Then you got Cooper Kupp. Again, I think the biggest thing with Cooper Kupp, do you bring him in as kind of a mentor role? The biggest issue, though, I think for Cooper, you look at the last 3 years and you got to question health. Last year, he played 12 games, 710 receiving yards. Year before that, 12 games, 737 yards. 2022, 9 games, but had 812 yards. 2021 was the big year where he had almost 2,000 yards receiving, 16 touchdown catches. LaFleur is familiar with him. He was there with the Rams as offensive coordinator when Cooper Kupp was a rookie, so a little bit of familiarity there. But I think the biggest thing is you bring in Cooper Kupp. He's not going to be a guy that don't expect him to come in and get you 1,500 yards receiving. Could he be a perfect mentor to come in, provide some veteran leadership, but also a guy, we talk about it, okay, you need to pick up a first down. It might be a 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2, and you need to have a pass that to keep the chains going. Kind of like Davante, he'd be that guy. Cooper Kupp could be that guy. Maybe you're looking for more of a veteran type presence. Maybe the biggest thing you want for a wide receiver is to provide that veteran presence in that lot in that receiving room. And that's why you're like, you know what, Cooper Kupp, back end of his career, short term, I like that option. Or maybe you're like, okay, Cooper, Davante, they're too old. I want somebody still a little bit younger. I want them to swing for the fences and get a legit, bona fide number 1. And that would be Garrett Wilson. Young guy who's going to be 25 in July. He's just played 3 years in the league. He's on a rookie deal, so we're going to have to sign him to a long-term deal, but that's okay because we're going to get him in his prime. And in his first 3 years, He has gone over 1,000 yards receiving, even last year when there was some discord between him and Rodgers, apparently, allegedly. But this is a young stud who has all of his best ball in front of him. And that's who you want. You want a bona fide number one to go up again, just like the rest of the division. JJ, Justin Jefferson's a bona fide number one. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rome Odunze potentially with the Bears. They got DJ Moore over there too, but you want your legit number one go-to guy. Feed him the ball, and that's Garrett Wilson. You want to go younger, and you want to invest in a younger top flight receiver. You go with this guy, and then you know what? You say goodbye to Watson and Dobbs and just pair them up with Reed, and let's go. Maybe that's the route you want to go. Maybe you want to go younger. Maybe you want something a little bit more in between. Not necessarily the youngest dude out there, but he's not the oldest. But he's got some ball, quite a bit of ball experience under his belt. He's 27 years old. He won't turn 28 until December. He is a big receiver with a lot of speed, and that is one DK Metcalf. You're talking 6'4", 230, 235. For the most part, too, has been pretty darn healthy in his 6 years of play. 16 games, 16 games, 17 games, 17 games, 16 games, 16 games. This past year, 992 receiving yards. 2 years before that, over 1,000. In fact, in his 6 years, the lowest amount of yards that he has acquired was his rookie year, and it was 900. But maybe you're thinking of this as like, okay, so Christian Watson was our big deep threat, right? Had the height, had the speed. He's gone. He's hurt. Don't expect him back. Maybe the earliest November. We don't know how ACLs heal. Maybe he can beat that. Maybe it'll be later. We don't know. Nobody knows at this point. So you want to replace that height, that deep threat, that speed, maybe with a little bit more physicality. DK Metcalf might be your guy. He's already under contract. However, he's got 1 year left on that deal. So maybe looking for an extension. And maybe, just maybe, with the 1 year deal and you give him an extension over there, you could kind of lower the. I know I said I wasn't going to say cap hits, but maybe you could lower the cap hit over there a little bit. Just ignore that part. But you could lock him up. He's still at that age where you can lock him up for a few years. And then you got a bona fide number one, a guy that has been in the league for 6 years, but still just 27 years old, a lot of experience, and the physical skill set. You put him in a lineup where he's different than Jaden Reed, he's different than DK Metcalf, he's different than Romeo Dobbs. Difference. Physical, fast. Ooh. Now that's enticing, right? Or if he's straight up a free agent, you're looking at, let's just get T. Higgins. Just turned 26 years old. He's looking to be a number one. Been with the Bengals, paired up with Jamar Chase. He's got 5 years in this league. Last season, this past season, 911 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns. The first time he has hit double digits. Or maybe you're a little concerned about health because the last 2 years, he's played 12 games and 12 games, 12 games each. So maybe you're a little bit concerned about that. But you're like, you know what? He's big. He fits the big receiver. He's 6'4". He's not as, let's say, muscular or built as a DK Metcalf, about 220, 215, 220. But he kind of he's more of a perfect guy, maybe a better comparison for Christian Watson and such. But he's a bona fide number one. You'd rather just invest, get on the free agent market, go get him, sign him up for 5 years, 4 or 5 years, call it a day. Go and get him, and you're set at your number one receiver spot for the next few years. Just turned 26. Still young, entering the prime of his career. So, who's your pick? Which one you matching up with Green Bay? Of those 6, you have to pick between those 6 because that's the rule. Debo, veteran, got a lot of wear and tear, but versatile, physical, wide receiver, can play a little running back. Devontae, veteran, still playing at a high level, very familiar with the system, could be a good mentor. Cooper Kupp, similar system, mentor role. Garrett Wilson, you're going to swing for the fences and get your brand new young number 1 wideout. Or maybe you sign your brand new young number 1 wideout in T. Higgins. Or maybe you trade for a DK Metcalf who's got 5 years. Did we say 5, 6 years under his belt? But he's still young and he's big and fast. My pick. So my pick, I don't know where the majority's at. I've got the texting and video stream down so I don't get distracted. I don't know where it's at. But my pick for my match game, and it's these 6, give me DK. I love you, Tay. Okay, I love Devontae Adams, one of my favorite players of all time. I think he'd be a great mentor to these youngsters. He could just come in day one and pick up where he left off. Very familiar with the offense and such. He would be he's probably my number 2 from that aspect. But if I have the potential, all things equal here, again, we don't care about trade compensation or contract numbers. All things equal, DK. You're talking about a 6'4", 6'5" wideout, 230, 235 with the speed that he has. Give me that in the lineup with a Tucker Kraft and a Jaden Reed, and you mix in a Wicks and a Romeo. Give me that all day, every day. So I'm going DK. Let's do a bonus round of match game then. And let's do edge rushers for the pack. So only 3 of them. Only going to give you 3 of these options. So it's Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, and Micah Parsons. Now, I threw in Micah Parsons because there was a report over the weekend, I believe it was from the NFL Network. Yes, says that they're studying or figuring out, whether to sign him or potentially trade him. And I think it would be a shock if they do trade him. But since there has been, according to the NFL Network right here, internal discussions about whether to pay Parsons or trade him for a king's ransom. So let's just throw him into this conversation, okay? So we got Micah Parsons, we got Max Crosby, and Myles Garrett. Now, we talked about Myles Garrett before, okay? Myles Garrett, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's 29 years old, one of the most dominant defensive ends, defensive linemen, defensive players in general in the NFL. Just turned 29 in December. And I think still has plenty left in the tank. A guy who I think has the right mindset. He's saying, he's playing for Super Bowls now. Okay, he's playing for Super Bowls. That's where he's at. That's his mindset. Perfect fit for Green Bay, right? He's going to win your one-on-ones. We just saw an Eagles team that dominated at the line of scrimmage. Just wreaked havoc going after the quarterback. Went after all day, every day. We want that, right? We want that. Been pretty darn healthy throughout his career, too. I mean, he's on a path to being a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Myles Garrett is a physical beast. You pair him up there, is that the perfect match? Does that just solve the pass rushing problems for Green Bay? Or is it Max Crosby? Again, he's only 27 years old. He has said he wants to be, quote, a Raider for life. But he has been vocal about some frustrations over the years. I did say, he really liked the hiring of Pete Carroll and said, feels better about things now than what they were a while ago, but I think this was kind of interesting to know. And I think it is. This is kind of getting blown out of proportion. This comment from Ian Rappaport, and it was over the weekend, but it said, while the hiring of Super Bowl winner Pete Carroll was a step towards stability, the Raiders still don't have a franchise quarterback and have a ton of work to do to field a competitive roster. Trading Crosby for a bounty of picks would be one to expedite the process, and Crosby might welcome the change, particularly if it's to a playoff team where he knows people, example, Green Bay. So I think a lot of people ran and are over-exaggerating a little bit with the report that they threw in Green Bay. And people are saying, oh, the fact that an insider said Green Bay there, maybe there's something more. Read the tea leaves. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out why Green Bay was mentioned. Rich Bisaccia is there, and Josh Jacobs is there, and Keyshawn Nixon is there. There's Raider connections there. Okay? It's not that hard to figure out why. And for a guy that wants to go to a championship caliber team or a team that's competing for a championship and maybe go to a team that he's familiar with some of the guys, boom, it's the Packers. So I think a lot of people and a lot of media stuff ran with that saying, ooh, it's Green Bay. But from a talent standpoint, there's no question Max Crosby would be flipping awesome. Okay? This year, he just played 12 games. But in the years prior, 16, 16, 17, 17, 17. I mean, he's been on the field. No doubt he would be a pretty darn good addition. Now, he will turn 28 once the season starts. Okay, he will turn 28. So, I mean, Garrett's about a year and a half, almost 2 years older than Max Crosby at this point. Then the Micah Parsons one. So he's going to be getting ready for his big-time contract. And again, I know I said we're not going to throw contracts in here. But Micah Parsons, when he first came on the scene, I mean, dude jumped out, right? First 3 years, didn't miss a game. You're talking about all-pro his first couple years. Defensive Player of the Year candidates. He was a Defensive Player Rookie of the Year. 13 sacks, 13 and a half sacks, 14 sacks, and this year only playing 13 games, 12 sacks. You're talking about a guy who is double-digit sacks in his 4 years. No doubt would wreak havoc on that line. Havoc on that line. So I am, for that, I'd be happy with either of those, but I'm going to go Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett won, but Max Crosby's very, very, very close. Very close. Very close. But I would go, I'd go Myles Garrett just because, I know 29 and some people are going to say, well, he's a little old and that, but remember Reggie White came in, he was 32 or something, I think at that point. I just think Myles Garrett is an absolute beast, and he would just wreck that line. He would be absolutely motivated, I think, going on a team that's got championship aspirations and winning goal. I'm picturing this Greek god of Myles Garrett in a green and gold uniform, and it's like, yes! So I'm going Myles Garrett, but I probably could be convinced with Max Crosby. I would not complain if it was either one of those. Either one of those guys. All right, so where's your match? You got to pick one. You got to pick one receiver of those 6, and you got to pick another, and you got to pick an edge rusher. Who do you got? All right. Text me your picks or comment on the video stream. 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with more after these quick words. All right, we're back with, we had some technical difficulties over there, so I don't know what the heck is going on here, but yeah, we had the Bucks thing there. It's like the Bucks game flipped on, and I don't know, but technology over there. So apologies for that. Board got a little mixed up and such. Let's go through some of the text, though, as we finish up this second hour, shall we? Let's do that. All right, it looks like a wide majority of you for the receivers going T. Higgins. Wide majority going with T. Higgins right now. We've got Richie going Higgins number 1, DK number 2. For the edge rusher, pass rushers, got to be Myles Garrett. Mark says pass rusher, not even close. It's Myles Garrett. Receiver, I still think Devontae. I believe he would best understand his role as not only a valuable contributor, but also a model for the younger guys to follow. Kupp would be 2, but no gas left in his tank. We've got Smuck says Debo, Hurts, close to 30, out of shape. Devontae, wrong side of 30. Costly, Devontae, okay. Kupp, wrong side of 30. Hurts, Metcalf, costly, loose cannon. Wilson, young, hungry, wants to win, under contract. It's Wilson for me. We got Surveyor Sam says, give me either T. Higgins or DK, but I'm leaning towards T based on the age. For pass rusher, it's Myles Garrett. Even on a crappy Cleveland team, he still had 14 sacks, and I feel he has plenty in the tank. C-Bomb also said Metcalf, big body receiver, 27 years old, can go deep, short, can beat you with speed, can run you over, beast. Max Crosby, 27, game wrecker, pass rush, stops the run, will beat you with speed, and will run your, hey, watch the language, run your butt over. So another texter says T. Higgins is the only number 1 receiver option on this one, young and ascending. That was from Chris. Josh says DK so huge in the run game. That's a good point. I think with DK, you factor in the run game. What is was Matt LaFleur say? You want the rock, you got to block. So I think that's a good point. Smart point, Josh. Another texter says it's T. Higgins. I like where his ceiling is going. Legit number 1 option for the Packers. Dave says he's going to go with DK Metcalf. So, I mean, it's right now it's majority does go T. Higgins, but DK Metcalf is making a push up there too. For the edge rushers, we've got, it's pretty much it's Myles Garrett leading the way. Nobody has picked Micah Parsons, but Greg says to me it's Myles Garrett. You got a guy that knows what he wants to do right now. He's focusing on winning at championships. He'd come in and give you 110%. I love that phrase. Give you 110%. Sorry, no. But gives you 110% week in, week out, and would absolutely wreck opposing offensive lines, and maybe a good source for a guy like Rashawn Gary. Another texter said Myles Garrett. He's just simply the best of those guys. No offense to Micah Parsons and Max Crosby, but if you were to rank them and who's the best defensive player right now, Myles Garrett is ranked above those guys. So Myles Garrett's getting a little bit more, according to the votes out here, Myles Garrett getting a little bit more of a gap between Max Crosby. A couple more that are just coming in here. We've got another pick for T. Higgins. So T. Higgins increasing his lead over DK Metcalf. And then same texter, don't have a name, but going with T. Higgins and Myles Garrett. And another texter here going DK Metcalf and Max Crosby. All right. Hey, keep those coming. All right. That kind of lit up the texting line there. So keep those coming. Okay. Continue to send them 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. You can comment on the video stream as well. Got a few people over on YouTube, so you can join in over there. I'd love to get like a chat row going over there for YouTube. Coming up next hour, we're going to talk some Badgers. We'll talk some Badgers. We've got the Badgers 17th now in the latest AP top 25 polls, moving up 5 spots. But a big week coming up here for the Badgers. So they took care of business their last couple games here. They're at 19 wins. RJ's coming up in about 25 minutes, and you've heard RJ talk quite a bit about getting to 20 wins. Well, they're 1 win away from that. But now things are going to get pretty tough for this Badger basketball team. And I'm excited. I think this is a very good litmus test for this team as we start to wrap up the regular season. Just a handful of games left here. All right, hopefully we stop getting interrupted here now from a non-existent Bucks game getting played over there. Final hour kicking off right now. Big thanks for tuning in however you're tuning in from. We got RJ Cardinal coming up in about 15, 20 minutes. We'll talk some Badgers with him. Badger basketball off till this weekend when they've got Purdue. What I was trying to say is that you're looking at the upcoming schedule here for this Badger basketball team, and it'll get tough, but I think it's a great litmus test for this Bucks team. You've got, Purdue, number 7th ranked team in the country. You got Wisconsin coming in here. It's going to be at Purdue. And then Illinois. I know Illinois dropped out of the rankings, but Illinois has had Wisconsin's number the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see how that Illinois game is going to go. I know, you don't have the ranking number by it, and for some people it may lose a little bit of luster there, but that's still going to be a tough game. Then you've got Oregon coming to Wisconsin. Oregon was in the top 25 rankings for a while, though. They've dropped out in the last couple weeks, but still, that should be a good game. Washington coming over. We'll see. But then Michigan State. I know Michigan State's been kind of struggling here a little bit. They dropped down to 11 in the latest rankings. So Wisconsin up to, did I say 17 earlier? I apologize. I misspoke. It's 16. 16 in the latest rankings. So they moved up a couple spots ahead of Marquette. Marquette coming in at number 18. Marquette's in action tonight. They're riding a 3-game losing streak. They're looking to end that. They're going up against DePaul tonight. So, but we'll talk all things Badgers, Badger hockey, kind of getting ready to wrap up their regular season. The women's team coming off of a huge series win over the Gophers, like absolute domination over the Gophers. I mean, we're at the point now, I think you're asking, all right, is it Badger women's hockey versus the field? What are you taking? I mean, they've just been so dominant this year that it's kind of like I think I'm taking the Badgers over the field. So let's catch up some. Let's catch up on some other texts over here. We've got Chris saying easily T. Higgins. He's been overshadowed by Jamar Chase. I don't know about overshadowed by Jamar Chase, but maybe just say, hasn't hit his stride or hasn't maybe reached his full potential with Jamar Chase. But Texter says it's easily T. Higgins. He's ready to be a number 1 receiver. He would bring a different element to this game. If anybody hasn't watched Bengals games and watched him play, go watch some highlights. Another texter says if I had to pick between those wide receivers, I would go T. Higgins. Another texter here. Wow, a lot of T. Higgins picks. We've going with this one is from Eric. Eric says it's close, but I would give the edge to T. Higgins. John also going T. Higgins. Okay, so T. Higgins is picking up a lot of steam right now. Let's go to some edge rushers here. We got another pick from Myles Garrett. That's from John. Another John here chiming in. Doug says he's going with Max Crosby. Ryan says he's going with Micah Parsons. And then Rick says he's going with Myles Garrett too. So a little bit closer, but still Myles Garrett leading the way on there. So it looks like if we add up the votes, tabulate the votes, it's T. Higgins and Myles Garrett. T. Higgins with a little bit of a wider gap between him and Metcalf compared to Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, I would say. Just kind of guesstimating. So keep those coming. We'll get back to some more because we got more flying through here, and it's hard to keep up with some of the texts right now. So we'll get to those. We spent some time in the first hour also talking some Brewers as pitchers and catchers would be going. Pitchers and catchers are going to be reporting tomorrow officially for the Brewers. We got our first spring training game coming up next Saturday. And, we've been kind of doing some previews. Yesterday we did, top storylines entering spring training for the Brewers. We've talked about different players and expectations, projections, and all that. And this morning in the first hour, we spent some time talking about maybe a hidden gem on this Brewers team that's not getting talked about a lot. Or maybe just players in general on his team that hasn't been getting talked a lot about that we should be talking a lot about. I mean, we spent time talking about Garrett Mitchell. Maybe he's the wild card of this team. If he could stay healthy, what can he do at the plate? I think the Brewers are going to count on him to really be an offensive threat this year. Obviously, the biggest question is going to be who's shortstop because it has a trickle-down effect from third to second. Christian Yelich, health-wise, can he get back to what he was doing last year? What's the projection? What's the expectation for Jackson Chourio in his second year? Tobias Myers, we saw what he did last year, especially at the end. What can he do? Is that arrow going to continue to go up? Can he add more to what he did last year? Does he got something extra? Is there another level he can reach? But I think one of the hidden gems for this team, and we may not see him right away. He may not be in the opening day roster, but I think it could be Jacob Misiorowski. Tall, lanky pitcher, 6'7", hard throwing. MLB.com came out with a list of the top 12 pitchers to watch in spring training. And Misiorowski was on that list, number 9. And this isn't just a list of minor league pitchers. I mean, it's a list that had Paul Skeens, Max Fried, those guys on there. And Misiorowski made it. And when you look at some of the numbers that he has been, what he did last year in AA and AAA, they're pretty eye-popping. So just a little bit of a background. This is from MLB.com. Misiorowski, the number 100. And that's the thing is, like, when you hear these numbers, you're probably thinking, and this guy is ranked 100. Misiorowski, number 100 on Major League Baseball's Pipeline Top 100 list entering 2025, has some of the best stuff of any pitching prospect. And that stuff took a jump up when the 22-year-old right-hander switched from a starter to a reliever in the minors late last season. As a reliever, Misiorowski's fastball was frequently reaching triple digits. His slider was sitting around 93 miles per hour, and his mid-80s curveball was wiping out hitters. Misiorowski earned an invite to Brewer spring training, and he'll be one of the most interesting pitchers to watch. MLB Pipeline rated both Misiorowski's fastball and his curveball as the best thrown by any 2025 top 100 prospect, giving his fastball a perfect 80 grade on the scouting scale and his curve a plus 70 grade. You hear that and the dude's ranked 100? So I don't know if the Brewers still view him as potentially a long-term starter. They very well could, because this follows a similar path to a lot of Brewers pitchers where they make their debuts or they break into the pro level coming out of the pen. Corbin did it. Woodruff did it. Freddie did it. Jimmy Nelson back in the day did it. Those guys got they got maybe some more extended playing time initially in their careers at the pro level coming out of the pen. But then they developed into pretty darn good starters. Corbin, duh. Brandon, duh. Freddie right now. Aaron Ashby's maybe a little bit of an unknown at this point. He was the guy too. They signed up a couple of years ago to a long-term extension. They thought he was going to be a starter, but maybe he's actually better suited coming out of the pen. DL Hall's kind of in that transition. Is he going to be a starter? Is he going to come out of the pen here? But there is a prevailing thought out there that Misiorowski will make his debut at some point this year, and he'll probably come out of the pen. But if this is a guy who's throwing in triple digits for his fastball, and he's got a slider in the low 90s, and then his curveball drops in the 80s, I'm excited to see some of that stuff. I can't wait to see that. Don't know when it will be, but maybe kind of a hidden gem. So we asked a little bit earlier in the first hour too, who are some of the other players, in your opinion, that for the Brewers maybe aren't getting talked about enough? Maybe are some other hidden gems or maybe kind of flying under the radar. Tobias was a popular pick. Garrett Mitchell was a popular pick. Sal Frelick was mentioned a couple times. Bryce Terang was mentioned a couple times. One person mentioned Bryce Terang was voted as the NL's best defender, platinum glove winner, not only gold glove, but platinum. And you're not hearing a whole lot of talk about him other than is he going to play short or second? He took a step in the offensive department last year. That was from Derek. You're right. Bryce Terang last year absolutely took a big jump in the offensive department. Stolen bases, leadoff hitter. You make a good point. You look at what he did last year in the 2024 regular season, finished with a 254 average, on base of a 316, OPS of a 665. Postseason, his numbers are up there. It was just a few games, but 14 at-bats overall in the postseason. He's hit 357, 438 on base, and a 1.009 OPS. Stolen bases, we know that. Finished the season with 50 stolen bases last year. So, should we maybe add a little bit more for the expectations for Bryce Terang? Mr. Grand Slam himself, Bryce Terang, who finished the season with 7 home runs. We know he's not a big home run guy, but it's felt like whenever there was a Grand Slam on the table, he was going to hit it. But his OPS almost jumped 100 points. His slugging jumped up 49. His batting average went from 218 to 254. Could we get a little bit more on the offensive side from Bryce Terang? Maybe just a little bit more of a jump. Possibly. But yeah, you're right. Talk about his defense, but maybe not enough talk about the jump that he had from 2023 to 2024 in the offensive department. All right. Keep those coming. Keep those picks coming from our match game last hour, too, if you have not chimed in on that yet. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll talk some Badgers. All right, we'll talk some Badgers. RJ Cardinal's going to be joining us. Badger Hoops off for a while. They're up to number 16 here, but a big stretch of games coming up here. How big of a litmus test is this for the Badgers? Also, we'll talk a little bit about hockey as they start to wrap up their regular seasons. So we'll hit that up. Also, I do want to talk a little Badger football with RJ too. I know it was late last week, but how big of a loss is it for the football team losing their general manager? We'll hit that up too.
Owned Tilden Gun. Whether you are a seasoned hunter, competitive shooter, or just starting out, they have got everything that you need. Tilden Gun carries the top brands and a wide variety of firearms to fit every purpose. Rifles, shotguns, handguns, you name it. And if you're not quite sure what you're looking for, their friendly, experienced staff is there to help answer any questions you may have. At Tilden Gun, they offer the expert advice that you can trust. Their knowledgeable staff is there to answer any of your questions and help you make the right choice and ensure that you're confident and prepared. So stop by their shop at 12427 98th Avenue in Chippewa Falls. That's 12427 98th Avenue in Chippewa Falls. Or you can check out their website at tildengun.com to check out all the different options you can choose from. Plus, Tilden Gun has the best selection and best prices in the area. On behalf of Tilden Gun, best of luck and be safe in the great outdoors.
He's smart, informed, entertaining, and he knows his sports. In other words, he's the kind of guy I'd like to settle down with in a small, cozy cabin in the woods. That is, if he was a woman with a case of cold ones. The Dan Kasper Show, weekday mornings from 6 to 9.
Bring 'em out, bring 'em out. Bring 'em out, bring 'em out. Bring 'em out, bring 'em out. Bring 'em out, bring 'em out.
Texter on the text line says DK all day. He's got a different body type than we currently have. Plus, he's been the man in Seattle. Don't forget Higgins has had Chase on the other side. So we really haven't seen defenses consistently rolling their coverage his way on the video streams. We've got Chad saying Metcalf, big body receiver, 21 years old, can go deep, short, can beat you with the speed, can run you over beast. Paul says I'd go DK, but I'd rather stay with what we have. Michael says, how often does T get double teamed? He's seeing the number 2 cornerback most of the game. DK is a number 1 over at the Seahawks and would be a number 1 in Green Bay. But as a non-Green Bay fan, go T. All right, keep those picks coming for match game. We'll get back to some more coming up a little bit. We've got some Badgers to talk about here this morning, and Mr. RJ Cardinal is joining us. How you doing, RJ?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Nothing to complain about. Had a conference champ over the weekend, so we're doing all right.
Yeah, nice. Hey, before we get to some of the positive stuff, I know this was late last week, but first time we get to chat with you. Football-wise, how big of a loss is it that the Badger football team, because I've seen headlines, how big of a loss this is for the Badgers to lose their general manager, Max, is it Steinecker?
Yeah.
Out there. So how big, can you explain to maybe some of us out here, like, why is this such a big loss? We keep seeing people saying it's a loss for the program. It's a loss for Luke Fickell, a big one. He's going to USC. How vital was he to this football program?
Yeah, he and other guy, Pat. I blank out. Like whenever you read about him, everybody just like writes them by their first name. So it's
Pat Lambert.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So those two are the guys in a lot of those videos when they can show them and be like, oh, this is what it was like when, and they put their handle in on whatever social media they're posting on when so-and-so committed. And it's those two going crazy. They're the ones wearing the tuxedos and that kind of stuff. Whether you think it's cheese or whatnot, they really had kind of the attitude and connection with some of these players on that level before you even get to know your actual coach in the whole recruiting process. So there were a few players that, they tweeted out sad faces and things like that at the loss of him. But really, he's, along with Pat, has been the driving force behind some of the recruiting tactics and whatnot, getting some of these higher rated classes at Wisconsin. So yet to be seen on who, they bring in, because now as you look at it, a lot of these other schools are bringing in famous ex-players at that university. I mean, I just saw Cal is bringing in Riverboat Ron as their GM. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of move Wisconsin makes. I mean, I think J.J. Watt lives in Wisconsin again. But there's plenty of ex-Wisconsin players who aren't in the coaching field that might be able to take that over. But yet to remain seen how that affects it. But on the surface level, it definitely looks like it's a bit of a big blow, depending on what the next steps are.
Yeah, I mean, you got Andrew Luck's at Stanford now as general manager too. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
I
And
don't.
what you have Ed Reed down at Miami.
Mhm.
So like just like you'd almost have to replace him with like a pretty darn famous player, and probably one that's a little newer. I mean,
Mhm.
you have Ed Reed in Miami, but I mean, Ed Reed transcends a lot of different decades in terms of his football talent, and he's a Hall of Fame player and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Joe Thomas lives in Wisconsin again now too. So, just two names I think I could throw out there.
Yeah,
but he's probably getting paid a lot more by the NFL Network to go do whatever he's doing. So, it's it'll be interesting to see the move they make. I mean, whatever the GM does, whether it's being in charge of recruiting or just being a face, I guess really, and they'll have to define what they want that role to be, because I'm not sure how involved Ed Reed is involved in the recruiting aspect of everything, or if he's just that figure hovering over Miami saying this is what Miami football is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not a clear definition of program to program, but like I said, that decision has to be made. We'll see who they bring in, and it'll probably tell us what direction that position will be moving forward.
Yeah, it's like, Ed Reed, and I'm curious, like Andrew Luck going on a recruiting trail too. That I don't know. I don't know if I can envision that at this point.
And I think for the most part, like that was I don't think they were traveling here. I think they were the in charge of the on-campus visits and all that, in the face of that. But I could be wrong. I don't remember too often seeing pictures of them when visiting players. But that, I mean, also probably not looking that hard. There's, if anybody wants to start tweeting at me and tell me I'm wrong, here's a picture of him with so-and-so, I'll be like, well, there you go.
What about Barry? I mean, he's still around too, right? He could just kind of be the ambassador GM type of role, right? He's still got some swag and such. So
yeah, but he's spending a lot of time in Naples now. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure you're gonna really be pulling him out of Naples for a recruiting visit in February.
That's true. That's true. Basketball wise, RJ. So last week, I mean, we were kind of talking about it. Badger basketball taking care of some business. They're up to 19. You've said it for the last couple of weeks. 20 wins. Kind of get to that. They're at 19 right now. Moving up to number 16 in the latest rankings. Got a bye up until this weekend where they take on Purdue. But I think, I'm looking at this schedule here. Purdue, Illinois, Oregon, Washington's in there, Michigan State. Is this the portion of schedule, and considering where it's at in the time period here as we're starting to wrap up the regular season, this is a litmus test to see, maybe give us a good impression how far or how deep this team can go when it comes to tournament time?
Yeah, I mean, up until recently, when you beat Northwestern, you had only beaten teams in the Big Ten with losing records. And Northwestern changed that, but still, that's the only one so far. But like we said before, in terms of their quad wins and losses, they don't have a bad loss yet. They don't, and I mean, they have good wins. So I saw Ken Palm, they're number 12 in the country. One of the other ones, they're 15 and currently ranked 16th, in actuality. So it definitely will be. We had Nick Osen on last week prior to the Iowa game, and he's looking at the schedule and actually thinking the rest of the way, starting with the Iowa game, Wisconsin would only lose 2 of these remaining games. So that tells you how confident he is, and I mean, he's on the beat, so he's like going to all these games. It was a tougher game than expected in Iowa City, but I mean, Carver Hawkeye, no matter what, that's going to be a hard place to play, even when the Hawkeyes are down. But yet, you saw Wisconsin really take over that game with 7.5 minutes left to go. Iowa made one basket from the field. So, I mean, Wisconsin defense really stepped up and did their thing to help continue, the maturation of this season and really what we can see as a multifaceted team that if it comes down to it and not all the buckets are falling, even when you score, 74, 75 points, your defense is going to be there to help out and really clamp things down on. And, Iowa's a good shooting team. I wouldn't say they're some of the best out there, but it's the team is showing they still have the ability to win games even when the shots aren't falling.
Mm-hmm. With this matchup with Purdue coming up here, I mean, both teams are 19-5. Purdue's at the top of the conference right now, but I mean, this conference race, Wisconsin's in fourth, tied for fourth, but they're just 2 games back, and they could easily make a run at this thing with their upcoming schedule here. But feels like finally no Zach Edey with Purdue, with the big man over there. But you look at some of their, I mean, Wisconsin averages more points than Purdue does, 81 to 78.7 and such.
Yeah.
A lot of Wisconsin's even out rebounding them based off per average. I mean, is this even though it's at Purdue, is this a winnable game for Wisconsin, do you think?
I mean, Wisconsin's won like once in 80 years at Mackey Arena, or whatever that crazy stat is. It's one of those I go into it expecting a loss, no matter what. It's at Mackey Arena.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. It's not happening. But you're looking at it in a team like Penn State and Ohio State. Both, I don't know where those games were played off the top of my head because I'm not watching it, like staring at Purdue's schedule right now. But that's their 2 conference losses, and I'd say Wisconsin's. Well, I mean, you don't have to say Wisconsin's better than them. Wisconsin is better than both those teams, and Penn State's at the bottom of the conference because Washington has played 1 less game than them in the conference. So it's one of those. It can be had. I'm going to go ahead and say that Penn State game was probably at Penn State, just because I don't know if Penn State has what it takes to go into Mackey Arena, but that's another one. Somebody can tell me I'm wrong on that because I'm not paying attention. But yeah, like we talked last week, it's definitely a schedule where you have the ability to make games up on some of the teams ahead of you because Michigan State, Purdue's still on there. You have Illinois you're playing again, who's behind you. And the rest of those teams are below 500 in the Big Ten after those. So it's really a schedule that you need to steal one against Purdue, Michigan State. You have to assume you're going to falter somewhere. I'd say Illinois can probably come in here to the Kohl Center and beat us again, like they did earlier in the year in Champaign. But it's a schedule that you can make up ground. And we have seen now, since we talked even, Purdue has lost. And yeah, you're tied for 4th in the conference with UCLA right now. Not sure how that works if UCLA is the higher 4 than us because they beat us.
Mm-hmm.
But like when looking at the actual Big Ten standings, they have Wisconsin ahead of UCLA on the Big Ten page. So that's one of those. I'm not too sure how it's working out, but if the Big Ten has Wisconsin first, I'm going to go ahead and say Wisconsin's the 4 seed if the tournament started today. So you're in a bye right now. So looking forward to this run here, and it shows Purdue is beatable. If Wisconsin has a day where those threes are falling, I think it's going to be a much better chance than trying to go blow by blow with them. It's a game. Yeah, you need everything to go right for you and have that type of game to walk into Mackey Arena and beat Purdue.
Besides John Tonje and Blackwell, who do you think has got to be that guy that steps up in this game and gets Purdue to help pull off this upset?
it's got to be either Winter or Steve Crowell. We've seen Crowell when he goes up against big men, tends to have lesser games sometimes. We need him to not. Those two need to be able to be the guys down low and help create things, because we know they can both step out and hit threes too. They need to be able to be on their game both inside and outside that arc to be able to make this game a little more open for the offense, and hopefully create a lot more for that Purdue has to account for on the defensive end of the ball. So I need those two to act like they're 7-footers.
Mm-hmm. Hey, moving over to hockey, I mean, how flippin' impressive was that Badger women's team just absolutely dominating the Gophers this past weekend?
Yeah, beat them 8-2 and 6-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the number 3 team in the country right there.
I know.
You went on the road the weekend prior at Duluth, who's like 6th, I think, or was 6th at the time, and you had a much closer games than what you had against Minnesota. But I think there's always a little more hate in games against the Gophers, no matter what, and I think the hate poured out. So they clinched the conference. They'll be the number 1 seed. So I think in 3 weeks they'll be hosting a game, but they have the weekend off this weekend. Next weekend they're traveling to Bemidji to take on Bemidji State, and then I think the following week is the start of the WCHA tournament. So really looking forward to seeing what this team can do in the postseason. It's just been impressive all year when you're sitting there at like 29-1-2.
Yeah.
This team is just incredible this year, and it'll be a massive disappointment if we don't see them win the national title.
I was going to say, I mean, I was kind of joking, but maybe it's not really a joke. Is it, would you pick Badgers over the field at this point? If you're picking a national champion, is it just like Badgers versus the field?
Yeah, pretty much. And I'd say that field will be Ohio State. I mean, it'll probably be, 3rd year in a row of Wisconsin, Ohio State. And hopefully, like 2 years ago, you'll be able to hoist the trophy again rather than lose to them in I think by 1 goal in the national championship game. So I mean, a little early right now, but I'm looking at those 2 teams. I really think it's just going to come down to those 2 versus the field, really. So looking forward to seeing what the postseason brings for this team.
On the men's side, not a great weekend against Penn State, getting blanked out Friday night, 2-0 loss, and then Saturday falling 2-6. Now they've got Ohio State, number 8 in the country. They're traveling to Ohio State this weekend. Badger men's sitting there at 11-16-3 overall. RJ, just a couple weeks left of this regular season. I mean, what's at stake here in these next couple weeks for the Badgers?
Well, points-wise, Michigan took a game against Michigan State over the weekend, so they gained 3 points. And I think they were already 2 ahead of you, so they're 5 ahead of you right now, if I'm remembering correctly. Well, I'm going to bring up those standings real quick. And you really need to win out in order to finish in the top 4 and get a home series. They're 4 points ahead of you right now. So, and I mean, Ohio State's 10 ahead of you, and you need to have the series of your life against Ohio State to get points out of it. If you don't, you'll be traveling somewhere to have your first round game, and I mean, chances are it'll be maybe. Well, let's see. Michigan State's got 40. Okay, so the top team gets a bye. If you stay where you're at, you're only 4 points ahead of Penn State. You'll be going to Michigan to play them in the first round of the Big Ten. And if you fall, you're looking at Ohio State or Minnesota. And Notre Dame's at 11 points, so I don't think you can fall that far. You don't want to be any lower than you are in 5th place right now. So Wisconsin needs to buck up on this road trip. Maybe getting away from everything is good for them. Steal at least one game, get 3 points out of that, try to get 4 or more on the weekend. And it really comes down to what this team has down deep to start pushing to, because I mean, at this point, I don't know how you're going to make the tournament if you're not pushing at least near a 500 record, and you need that to even be 15, 16, and 3 on the year. It's been you went from being able to say, yeah, we have a clear shot at a winning record this year and pushing, and you were doing well enough that you were getting ranked with a losing record, because those top 4 in the Big Ten are looked at as pretty darn good overall. And something needs to click where that playoff mentality needs to start this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Hey, RJ, I want to ask you a question. Somebody had tweeted this to me over the weekend. It was after the Badger game against Iowa, and I mean, you're probably the biggest Badger fan I know out there, but this was from Jesse. Badger fans, what's a better feeling, beating PJ Fleck or beating Fran McCaffrey? What's your pick, RJ?
Oh, mine's beating PJ Fleck.
That's it? Okay.
Because it used to be Fran, but now that he's gone comatose, I guess. Like, I honestly, if he's still the coach next year, I'd have to question him, because you had one son transfer, your other son helps coach at Butler, one coaches at Butler, the other transferred to Butler, and the other's a senior in high school and committed to Butler. If that's not telling me Fran McCaffrey isn't going to be there much longer, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I mean, you watch some of his press conferences after games, you watch his demeanor on the sideline, whether it's some new attitude or something, he just doesn't look like he cares.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the face of a guy who doesn't know what he needs to do to have wins come, to have his players be motivated, things like that. But it's one of those situations where I'm not sure he's going to be the coach after this year.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, by the way, I know it's not Wisconsin, but it's in the Big Ten. Mike Woodson's leaving Indiana. Do you think a lot of are Hoosiers getting their Hoosier fans getting their expectations too high, thinking Brad Stevens, they can nail him in and get him to leave the Celtics?
Yes. It's not like he's getting forced out of there. And who's to say he really wants to go back into coaching, especially when the situation in college athletics right now. I mean, he's the GM of the Celtics. He's the one who's been putting these teams together that are perennial NBA Finals contenders. I'd be quite happy doing that, because every time you do that, you're in demand, and you can say, hey, I'm leaving for a different job, and you'll get money tossed at you,
Yeah.
So he's a good evaluator of talent, it really seems. But, when you can have a guy locked into a contract or trade a guy away, why would you drop back into college basketball in a market controlled by the players to the effect of we make more money than even the head coach would in some cases, and especially at Indiana, where they're getting the talent, they're paying the talent, and then maybe it's Mike Woodson and he can't coach. I don't know.
Mhm.
But it seems one of those overpaid players just coasting rather than playing basketball. Where in the NBA, you're playing for that contract, and almost every year you're playing for a contract.
Mhm.
I just think I'd be shocked if he stepped away from the Celtics to go back to college coaching.
I agree. He's RJ Cardinal, dude. Good stuff as always. How's the? Well,
I
go
will
ahead.
say though, Greg Gard retired him.
There you go. I like that. How's wrestling going, by the way? Before I let you go, so I know you
Real
got
good.
regular season's got to be wrapping up
Yeah,
soon.
we had our conference tournament this past weekend. Our 106 pounder took the conference title. The rest of the guys who participated all got team points, so they all contributed this weekend, and we're moving into regionals come Saturday. Girls regionals is Friday. We go to Mineral Point for that. Girls is just one division right now because it's the growing sport, but yeah. So and then this is actually the first year of the girls regional. Last year was the first year of a girls sectional, or 2 years ago. I forget which one it was, but yeah. So they're expanding that state series. So there's been more participation, whereas in the past it was just like, hey, sectionals is the one stop because we need more girls to participate before, and then we've gotten more girls to participate in wrestling this year. It's now a sanctioned, well, I think last year it was a sanctioned WIAA sport. Now, yeah, participation just keeps going up. So Friday night is girls regionals all over the state. Saturday is boys regionals all over the state, and you're fighting to move on to sectionals on the 21st and 22nd, and then state tournaments the 27th, 28th, and March 1st. So
Jeez.
we're really getting towards the end here. Oh, and then the week later is team state. So yeah, everything's starting to wind down, and it's survive and advance time for wrestling in the state of Wisconsin.
No kidding, man. Wow. Hey, dude, appreciate it. Good stuff as always. Enjoy the rest of the week, man, and we'll catch up with you next week, okay?
Sounds good. We will talk to you then.
You got it. RJ Cardinal. Good stuff as always. Our good buddy down in Madison. Let's take a quick break and we'll wrap things up here this morning. We got some picks and predicts. We'll hit that up after these quick words. Just a quick update on a little informal poll here we did. DK Metcalf made a late push here, but it looks like just a slight majority of you voters out there still went with T. Higgins in our match game that we did in the 7 o'clock hour. So Myles Garrett, leading vote getter for the edge rushers and such. So, but DK made a late push. If I'm just kind of mentally adding all the texts and messages on the texting line in the video stream. So, big thanks though for everybody who contributed and sent over for our match game. Appreciate that. Always love to hear from you guys. Let's do some picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room this morning. Looking for somewhere to maybe watch some of these games and hang out with some fine folks. Head on over to the Elbow Room, located right next to the Banbury Place in Eau Claire. Let's take a look at some of the NBA games before we get to some college basketball games. So tonight, just a handful, a little less than a handful. Toronto at Philadelphia, I'll go Philly. The Knicks at the Pacers, I'll go with the Knickerbockers. Let's do Detroit at Chicago. Give me Detroit. Memphis at Phoenix. I'm going to go with the Grizzlies. I'll go with Memphis Grizzlies. College basketball, we've got number 3 Florida taking on number 22 Mississippi State. I'll go with the Gators. Number 5 Tennessee taking on number 15 Kentucky in Kentucky, but I'm going to go with Tennessee. Number 7 Purdue taking on number 20 Michigan. Purdue just not that long ago really put the beat down against Michigan. Michigan is favored by 1.5, but I'm going to go with Purdue in this game. Before I do the Marquette one, we've got Georgia at Texas A&M. Yeah, I'll go Texas A&M. Indiana at Michigan State. UConn versus Creighton. Creighton's now in the top 25. I'm going to go UConn, though. I think UConn goes in and picks up the win. And then Marquette will win tonight. I think they end their 3-game losing streak and pick up the win against Creighton. So, not against DePaul, excuse me. Still thinking about UConn. Big East teams on the mind. All right, those are your picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room. So we spent a good portion of the first hour talking some Brewers as we inch closer to pitchers and catchers reporting tomorrow for the Crew. Spring training, first game next Saturday. Talked a little bit about Jacob Mizorowski, and could he be a hidden gem for the Brewers this season? So we'll continue to talk some more Brewers as we inch closer to the start of spring training and the start of the season overall. But we also talked a little Bucks. Bucks last night falling to the Warriors. Jon Horst talking to the media before the game. First time we've heard from Jon Horst since the Chris Middleton trade and the various other trades that the Bucks did before the deadline. Jon Horst calling it, quote, the hardest transaction that he has made as an executive, but, quote, did so to maximize the window for a championship. It's still the awesome responsibility to try to take this franchise and maximize the window that we have now as best as we can. What we think gives us the best chance to win and figure out how to continue winning going forward. There's a very narrow set of opportunities that we felt that we could do that, and this was one of them. Bucks will be back at it tomorrow, taking on the Timberwolves just across the border. I wonder if we got any listeners that's going to be going over to that game. Remember, no Giannis. So, which stinks. People were expecting to go over there and see Giannis going up against Ant-Man and that. So we'll talk some Bucks, a little bit more Bucks tomorrow. Tomorrow is also a stock reports. Brain fart. Stock reports are due. So whose stocks are rising, whose stocks are falling. Let me know. Think about that tomorrow. We'll hit that up. Speaking of tomorrow, we are actually going to be doing the show from the Sonotech Center ahead of the big-time Blue Gold men's basketball game going up against Platteville. That's going to be tomorrow night at the Sonotech. So we're going to be posted up in one of the upper boxes at the Sonotech doing the program. We'll have a live stream going on, as well as, you can check it out on the radio dials or online over there too. So, but we are going to be over at the Sonotech Center tomorrow. So if we sound a little different, that's why, because we're going to be on the road for a little tailgate road show coming at you tomorrow. So we'll probably do another game time. We do have a busy schedule coming up tomorrow, so we'll see if we try to get into another game game time there too. So, just see Shohei Ohtani has arrived for spring training. That's posted up on Twitter and the X there. That's that time of year, baby. That time of year. Sound of the ball hitting the bats, pitch getting in the catcher's mitt. Oh, yeah. Some of the best sounds in all of sports are just right around the corner. I'm excited. I just, every time we get close to baseball, it's like, I'm excited just because it's spring. We're getting there, getting to summer, it's a new sport starting. You got expectations, high expectations for your team, regardless. Most of the times, you have high expectations. But I think there's a lot of intrigue surrounding this Brewer season after surprising a lot of people last year. You lose Willy Adames, though. You traded Devin Williams. More of a youth movement coming in. So I think there's still some question marks, but I think there's still excitement. Jackson Chourio for sure. You're hoping Yelly could pick up where he left off last year. I'm intrigued with some of these pitchers, these youngsters that we got coming in, especially Tobias Myers. What can he do to repeat last year, maybe even get a little bit better? The continued development of the guys like Terang and Ortiz and Sal Frelick and Garrett Mitchell, will they continue to get better? So definitely some question marks. Maybe a little apprehension in some areas, like do they have enough power? But I'm still intrigued with the season. I'm excited for what's to come. I mean, they surprised everybody last year, so why not again this year? But we'll talk some more Brewers and talk some more baseball in general as we get closer and closer and such. I do want to talk. There was something I missed today that I want to talk a little bit about. There was a really interesting piece on the Lead talking about the Bucks and the youth movement and how maybe the youth movement has kind of saved the Bucks season so far. So kind of wanted to turn that into a topic. You need to talk about the youth movement of Andre Jackson, AJ Green, some of the guys they got in trades, a little bit more younger guys, Kevin Porter Jr. and such. I know Kuzma's just 29 in that, but I wanted to hit that up. So we'll see if we get that tomorrow or maybe a little bit later on in the week, because tomorrow's the last game before the All-Star break anyways too. So, all right, DP Danitz, they're up next. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. Same time tomorrow, different place. We're going to be over at Sun and Tag. Tune in. Should be a lot of fun. Talk to you then.